What if everything you've been taught about one of history's most infamous betrayals was completely wrong? What if the man condemned as Christianity's ultimate traitor was actually its greatest hero? Today, we're re-diving deep into one of the most controversial and explosive discoveries in religious archaeology. The Gospel of Judas. This isn't just another ancient text. This is a document so dangerous, so revolutionary, that it was buried for nearly 2,000 years. A text that presents Judas Iscariot not as the betrayer of Jesus, but as his most trusted disciple and the only one who truly understood Christ's divine mission. I'm about to take you on a journey through forbidden knowledge, secret teachings, and revelations that could shatter everything you thought you knew about Christianity. But before we begin, if you're ready to explore the hidden truths of history, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we're about to uncover secrets that powerful institutions never wanted you to discover. This statement alone reveals the main conflict that runs through the entire text. Jesus repeatedly tells his disciples, especially Judas, that they don't understand who he is, what God is, and the purpose of his mission. They're essentially following the wrong path. Judas, however, is different. He's the only one who grasps the deeper truth. Let's look at a conversation Jesus has with Peter, a prominent disciple, but also one known for his impulsive and sometimes misguided actions. Jesus asks Peter, "What do you think, Simon, son of Jonah?" Peter replies, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." But Jesus says, "You did not say this on your own. It was the Father in you who spoke. For there are many who testify about me, and no one takes offense." Here, Jesus clarifies that Peter didn't come to this conclusion on his own. It was a revelation given to him by God himself. So while Peter's confession is technically correct, Jesus points out that it wasn't based on genuine understanding, but on divine inspiration. He then issues a stark warning to Peter, telling him that if he wants to follow him, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow him. Again, this concept of understanding who Jesus really is as a divine being comes up. Jesus tells Peter that he's looking at a cup that will be taken from him. And when Judas asks about this cup, Jesus reveals a stunning truth. He says, "It is I who am the cup of rebellion. My blood, which is poured out for many, is for the forgiveness of sins." Even more shocking is how Jesus tells Judas to prepare a cup of poison for him. But when Judas asks for permission to drink it himself, Jesus refuses. "Do not drink it yourself, for it is bitter and from the fruit of the tree of knowledge." This exchange shows us that the cup Jesus refers to isn't an object, but a metaphor for his own suffering. His blood will be shed, symbolizing rebellion against the Old Covenant law. The Gospel of Judas paints a picture of Jesus as a divine figure who has come to rebel against the established order, to challenge the existing system of laws and traditions. This idea of rebellion is further emphasized. When Jesus tells Judas to turn away from the present age, he says, "Turn away from the present age in which you live, and from the ruler of this age, the one who rules over those who obey him. Come, depart from here, for the place where you are going is prepared." Here Jesus calls the current age a prison and declares that the one ruling over it is Satan. He then warns that unless his disciples repent, they will also be imprisoned. It's interesting to note that Jesus doesn't just talk about repenting of their sins, but specifically repenting of their understanding of this age, suggesting that they need to reject the fundamental principles of the world they live in. This idea of rebelling against the established order and rejecting the values of the current age is a recurring theme throughout the text. It's a call to abandon the conventional wisdom of the time and embrace a new way of thinking, a radical departure from the norm. The world Jesus lived in, as he describes it, is characterized by oppression, deceit, and a lack of true understanding. He speaks of people living in darkness, manipulated by the rulers of this age, who keep them trapped through ignorance and fear. But there is hope. Jesus offers a way out, a path to enlightenment, and he extends this invitation to all who are willing to listen. He promises a new way of seeing, a new way of being, and a new way of understanding the world. The key, he says, is to reject the teachings of the current age and instead follow his lead, to rebel against the darkness, to challenge the deceivers, and to seek the light of truth. This message is particularly relevant today. In a world where conformity, complacency, and acceptance of the status quo are often encouraged, the Gospel of Judas reminds us to question, to challenge, and to seek a deeper understanding. It's a call to action for anyone who feels dissatisfied with the state of the world and yearns for something more. Will you answer that call? You ready to rebel against the darkness and seek the light of truth? Are you willing to challenge the deceivers and stand up for what you believe in? The choice ultimately is yours. Chapter 3. Why was this gospel buried? Now let's talk about why such a revolutionary text was kept secret for so long. Some suggest that the church actively suppressed it because it went against official doctrine, but others argue that early Christians rejected it because it contradicted their beliefs. The burial of the Gospel of Judas goes hand in hand with the rise of the Gnostics, a diverse group of early Christians who were deeply concerned with esoteric knowledge, or gnosis in Greek. They believed that salvation came not through faith in Jesus' sacrifice, but through personal spiritual experiences and mystical insights. For the Gnostics, this secret knowledge was crucial, and they were convinced that Jesus held the key to it. However, the Gospel of Judas doesn't paint a clear picture of Gnosticism, even though it aligns with certain Gnostic ideas. It seems that Gnostic groups may have selectively embraced certain parts of the text to fit their narrative, while ignoring or reinterpreting others. While the Gospel of Judas doesn't fit neatly into any single category or denomination, it provides us with a unique window into the diversity of thought and belief that existed in the early Christian world. It challenges us to reconsider the monolithic view of early Christianity often presented in mainstream narratives. This ancient text serves as a reminder that faith and spirituality are complex, multifaceted, and deeply personal. It encourages us to approach discussions of religion and theology with nuance, understanding, and a willingness to engage with different perspectives. Before we wrap up our journey through the enigmatic Gospel of Judas, I want to leave you with a thought-provoking question. How does the portrayal of Judas as a beloved disciple who understands Jesus? This mission challenge your preconceived notions of good and evil. The Gospel of Judas, a different Jesus for a different God. This gospel begins with a shocking claim. Notice the phrase, your God, not our God or simply God, but your God, implying that the God that the disciples worship is different from the God that Jesus serves. This distinction becomes crucial to understanding the entire theological framework of this gospel. Chapter 3 lays out the forbidden Gnostic worldview. The material world we live in is not the creation of the true, supreme God, but of lesser, imperfect beings who either didn't understand the divine plan or rebelled against it. Jesus refers to the true God as the great invisible Spirit. From this supreme source, a series of divine emanations flowed out, each generation becoming more distant from the original perfection, until we arrive at this material world and the flawed beings who dwell in it. But there is hope. Some souls carry within them a spark of the true divine light. They just need to awaken to it. And this is where Judas comes in. Unlike the other disciples, Judas possesses this special knowledge. He alone understands Jesus' true origin and mission. In chapter 4, Judas steps forward and makes a shocking confession. Jesus, recognizing this, reveals to Judas the mysteries of the kingdom. This is the beginning of the secret revelations that form the heart of this gospel. But perhaps the most shocking revelation comes at the end. Jesus explains that what we call Judas's betrayal was actually the highest form of service to the divine plan. This is the story of Jesus according to Judas Iscariot. Okay, let's go back to the story. In the 4th chapter, the Lord said, "Are you too afraid of man? For there is one who is afraid of the man that clothes, but he will have no concern for the one who clothes the Spirit within him. And there are many such men among my disciples." Now, this is a little confusing, so let's unpack it. The Lord means Jesus, and the man that clothes refers to the physical body, the earthly vessel. So this passage suggests that worrying about what people think or say about your physical actions is pointless, because those things are temporary and superficial. What really matters is what the Spirit within you thinks and does. And it seems like Jesus is accusing his disciples of caring more about their reputation in the eyes of others than pleasing the divine Spirit within. He then says, "But I have said my prayer concerning you men, and concerning him who delivers me up. And now, look, I am about to speak and tell you what I know. Listen carefully to what I am saying. It is the interpreter within you that knows whether what I say is from God, since it is he who comes from the all and returns to the all. And it is he who is the interpreter of the truth. Here Jesus is telling his disciples that they already have the capacity to understand his message. They have the Holy Spirit within them, which allows them to discern whether what he's teaching comes from God. This is not a message of free grace where everyone is saved regardless of their response. This is a message of discerning obedience. Only those who listen to his message and obey it will be considered disciples. Then he tells them, "You are going to stumble tonight, and every man will flee from himself. The appointed hour has come near. You will abandon me, each man doing as he wishes. Where each man will say to his partner, 'Beware of the stumbling block.' That is, beware of the judgment." Jesus is warning them that soon they will abandon him. Each man will be left to himself, abandoned in fear and worry, wondering what will happen next. There will be no help for them, no guidance. Each will choose his own path. This was exactly what happened in the original story. After Jesus was arrested, Peter denied knowing him 3 times. The other disciples fled and hid. None stood by him. This is also why in the canonical Gospels, after the resurrection, Jesus appears first to Mary Magdalene, who represents humanity, and only later to the other disciples. Mary, who represents humanity, is the one who believes the resurrection, the others doubt. In modern times, few names strike fear into the hearts of Christians more than Judas Iscariot, the disciple who betrayed Jesus into the hands of his enemies. He is synonymous with treachery, his name used as an adjective to describe any act of disloyalty. For centuries, the story of Judas's betrayal has served as a cautionary tale, warning us about the dangers of greed, envy, and the corrosive power of evil. And yet, what if everything we think we know about Judas and his betrayal is wrong? Enter the Gospel of Judas, an ancient text that rewrites the story of Jesus' beloved disciple, turning him from the most infamous traitor in history into a misunderstood hero. Far from being a lowlife, Judas was actually Jesus' favorite disciple. He alone understood the divine mission that Jesus had come to fulfill and bravely carried out Jesus' instructions, knowing full well that it would cost him his life. So shocking is this revelation that some scholars argue the Gospel of Judas must be a modern forgery, but this conclusion is too simplistic. Not only is the Gospel of Judas an authentic first-century text, it is part of a larger tradition of alternative Christianity that offers a radical new perspective on the nature of good and evil. This isn't just an obscure footnote in some dusty old book. It touches on fundamental questions about the limits of human morality, the nature of self-sacrifice, and the hidden purposes of God. Imagine if someone told you that everything you learned about one of history's most famous figures was a lie. That person was actually a hero, not a villain. That's what the Gospel of Judas challenges us to do. To understand what's at stake here, we need to get beyond the simplistic view of Judas as a villain who betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. This caricature, while popular, is not supported by the canonical Gospels. In fact, those texts present a far more sympathetic portrait of Judas. On several occasions, the other disciples want to prevent Jesus from eating at the home of a certain woman, presumably a prostitute. But Jesus invites them anyway, rebuking his disciples for their lack of compassion. Who was the disciple who showed the most compassion, asking no questions and offering no judgment? It was Judas. When Mary Magdalene encountered Jesus after his resurrection, she initially did not recognize him. Who broke the news that it was the risen Christ? Again, it was Judas. The other disciples didn't believe Mary until Judas spoke up. And when they were arguing about who among them was the greatest, whose place was the highest in heaven, Jesus washed their feet, a menial task usually reserved for servants. Which disciple stepped forward to wash Jesus' feet? Once again, it was Judas. From these accounts, we learn that Judas was sensitive, empathetic, generous, humble. Above all, he was fiercely loyal to Jesus. There is no hint in the canonical Gospels that he ever betrayed Jesus willingly. Now enter the Gospel of Judas. According to this fascinating text, Judas was indeed Jesus' favorite disciple, because he alone understood Jesus' true mission. While the other disciples planned to overthrow the Romans and establish a political kingdom, Judas understood that Jesus' kingdom was not of this world. This led to tension between Judas and the others. They wanted Jesus to perform miraculous acts to bolster their political ambitions. But Jesus insisted that such demonstrations of power had a higher purpose, namely revealing the hidden spiritual reality of the world. Ultimately, Judas and Jesus were in agreement, and so Jesus confided his deepest plans to Judas alone, including how his arrest and crucifixion were necessary to bring about new life for all humanity. Judas carried out these instructions, accepting his fate as the betrayer willingly, knowing it would save countless lives in the future. The other disciples, unaware of the divine plan, assumed Judas had gone over to the enemy. They fled, abandoning Jesus in his greatest hour of need. Only Judas remained by Jesus' side as he faced trial, condemnation, and execution. In the end, it was Judas who demonstrated the greatest love for Jesus, not by remaining faithful from a distance, but by sacrificing himself for the mission. He wasn't motivated by greed or envy, but by an unshakable commitment to Jesus' teaching. Judas was right where he needed to be when Jesus needed him most, proving that he was the truest friend Jesus had. The story challenges us to reconsider our definitions of good and evil. Can an action that seems evil be part of a greater good? Can sacrifice be an expression of ultimate love? Or was Judas truly the villain all along? This isn't a question we can answer definitively, which is why the discovery of the Gospel of Judas is so important. It forces us to confront the limitations of our own perspective. We may think we understand the difference between good and evil, but perhaps our definitions are too simplistic. Our vision is limited, like that of the other disciples who failed to grasp the depths of Jesus' mission. Like them, we run the risk of condemning what God sees as good. This is the central dilemma posed by the Gospel of Judas, and it's a dilemma that continues to resonate today because it touches on universal experiences we all grapple with. Loyalty and betrayal, friendship and sacrifice, devotion and condemnation. The Gospel of Judas challenges us to look beyond outward appearances and examine our own perceptions. After all, who decides what is good and what is evil? God or man?